Hola amigos, this is Radio Free Eskippakithiki at WRFL, and I'm here today with Winchester's own Rory Houlihan, and we are going to talk about a wide variety of topics, probably starting with Winchester politics and the Booker campaign, because as I'm sure you know, the Charles Booker campaign is doing some sort of large announcement like 5 blocks from here right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I wish I was there. If I hadn't signed up for this show at this moment, I would actually be at that, but I did, and so here we are. That's not a really good way to put it.
No, it's not. It's not a good way to put it.
There, but since I'm here.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm here with Rory Houlihan, and as you know, Rory Houlihan and I worked in a dish room at Halls on the River in 1994.
It seemed like a long time ago.
Yeah, it does seem like a little while ago. Personally, I'm glad. I was good at washing dishes, but it wasn't good for me. I was very unpleasant about it, as I recall.
We all have to start somewhere. The story behind that is that I moved up from Florida, okay, with my wife and 2 boys, my grandson Jesse and my son Sean. And we were actually living down at the state park. We were camping out at the state park over there in Boonesboro State Park.
Yeah.
And it was not a bad thing. The kids remember it as a big camping trip. We spent like 4 months there. But I can tell you, it got awfully cold in November.
Yeah. Cars have thin walls. We're finding that out at my house right now, too.
So
I gotta sign this piece of paper here.
about 4 months of being homeless, I understand what it is to be homeless.
Yeah, me too.
And it was getting whatever job you could. And yes, I worked as a dishwasher at Halls, too.
Well, I mean, so did I. So if you feel there's any judgment from me on that one whatsoever, absolutely not. And I will say, I don't know, do you actually remember me from back then? I was a jerk. I've as I've said many times, I feel I owe you several apologies for that. And since that time, I actually did spend some time homeless, and learned to be less mean to the people around me.
I because of the need to get more and more information to get a license, and we have got to get new licenses, both me and the Honey Bunny Terry Houlihan. And so we were digging through all the old papers, okay, and I'm finding recommendations and all the testimonies about me in the papers, and I'm like, we still have these? Because understand, when you are homeless, what you lose is all your identification.
Yeah, and it's hard to get back.
And it's really hard to get back because you have no way of tagging it back. So you want to get a Social Security number, okay? Well, where's your residence?
Yeah, where are they going to mail it to?
Well, correct.
Yeah.
And also, how do you get IDs? Like, you lose your driver's license. Again, how do you get that?
Yeah, how do you get the documents to get the documents? And that's why I'm always against, I like Kentucky's voter recognizance rules a lot, because it lets people vote just because, like, they know them. You don't, like, the people who lose their ID aren't the rich people. They aren't the people who are always like, well, I don't understand why you don't have your Social Security card. Like, they never will understand. They're not the people who are getting cut out. It's the people who can't get their Social Security card back who fall off the bottom of the train.
And it's also believe it or not,
Yep.
I believe that they're doing this also in Clark County, is to get rid of the Eisenhower Republicans off the voting booth thing, because understand, the Eisenhower Republicans are now in their 80s and 90s years old.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And
Older.
they're not able to travel long distances any longer. So it's a great way of basically making sure the new GOP doesn't have traditional voters who will change parties to vote them out.
That's really pretty accurate. I mean, I generally find these accusations of voter suppression to be somewhat overblown, just because I know from experience, like what Andy Bashir got, 175,000 felons the right to vote back in very first thing in 2020, right?
Yeah.
And then we all got shellacked. Democrats got shellacked at the box office. Well, that's not a coincidence. He gave those people their vote, and they didn't feel any personal loyalty to. If they feel any personal loyalty to anyone, it's to Bashir. They sure don't feel it to the Democratic Party. So that we're all like, where did all these new voters come from? These are the people that we gave them the right to vote, and then they voted against us, and that's wonderful. Actually,
you understand,
yeah.
You had the Republican Party has been running a slate campaign.
Yes.
Okay, because big money candidates like Donald Trump gets a lot of money. Okay, and if they tell their followers to vote a straight ticket, hit that slate button at the very top. That locks out all the rest of the votes.
Yep.
Okay. And
so even if they want to cross over later down, it doesn't matter because they hit that slate button. They hit that straight ticket button.
And for a matter of fact, we were talking before about Henry Branham.
Yeah.
And Henry Branham lost his election by 535 votes.
Yeah.
Because of slate votes.
Yep.
He was actually leading before that.
Yep. And I bet you, and there were so many people who told him, well, I mean, that's like, Chris, the passing of Chris creates a very different situation. Chris Pace, by the way, is the county judge executive of the Clark County, where we live, which is one county over. At the end of Winchester Road is a place called Winchester. And that's where Rory and I live. We're actually not too far from each other. We're out in the county. But our county judge executive, who's a fellow I'd known since we were tiny little kids together.
Bestest guy in the world.
Sure, sort of, sometimes. I mean, he was who he was, and I liked him, and I respected him. But also, there were problems.
Understand, no one can please everyone all the time. Okay? But you want to listen to everyone and give everyone their 2 cents in their speak, and understand. I've worked in retail now for over 23 years, going on 24. And the only way I know what to sell people is to ask them tons of questions. Yeah. And I will always start off with, I'm going to ask you a stupid question.
Okay.
And
I'm ready.
Because this is the way you learn what they want and what they need. Okay? So I've gotten into the habit of listening to folks. Some folks I agree with totally, and some folks I don't agree with at all. But everybody has the right to be heard.
Yeah.
Okay? This is America. We're not Russia or China. We don't have Skynet
yet
watching over us.
We have Facebook.
You mean Meta?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. What is going on? I tell you, these are things that I would normally associate with a business that's going out of business. But they fail forward. Like the Cybertruck. I don't understand how the Cybertruck didn't end Tesla right then and there, but what do I know?
Well, obviously, more than anything else. But with that said, what we are facing today in our politics, okay, is a wholesale assault on voters' participation. Okay, and I was kind of curious. I read the how-to book written by 2 Democrats, and I wanted to know what the how-to book was for Republicans. And
did you? So is that the one?
That's the one for the Republicans.
Oh, let me see. That's interesting. It's called 9 Secrets for Getting Elected: The Official Manual for Candidates from City Hall to the State House and Beyond by Kit Bobko.
There's a reason why he was only a 2-term mayor.
Yeah. He on the back it says this is his first book and he misspells first. Not to get into grammar flames or anything, but come on.
Okay. So if you go down to the table of contents, you get secret number 1. Okay? Know why you're running. Okay? Well, I'm running to basically I'm getting to this age that I'm looking at retiring. Okay. And looking at retiring, you have a couple options to do. Okay? You can go home and watch TV all day long. Well, I've worked 3 jobs for most of my life. My wife complains that I will stand up and watch TV. And she tells me to sit down and stay a while. Okay, because I am so used to being walking, running, moving.
Doing.
Okay, that if I sit down, I fall asleep.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I stay awake is by standing up. Okay, but I was born on January 17th. Okay, and Benjamin Franklin's birthday is January 17th.
Okay.
And did Benjamin Franklin, after becoming very wealthy, okay, he was a newspaper magnate. He owned several newspapers.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Okay, when the only thing that people could have is a newspaper. So he could have retired and had a life of ease. Instead, he chose a life of service. And we are the United States of America because he chose a life of service. Because basically, during the early years, he was instrumental first at getting funds for our army.
And also bringing the French in.
Which
it wouldn't have happened without the French.
Correct.
And then the French Revolution came from that. So honestly, I mean, he helped invent electricity. He's a big, important guy. Yeah, absolutely.
But he also was one of the 2 old men at the Constitutional Convention.
Who's the other one?
That's George Washington.
George Washington was old? How old was he at the Constitutional Convention?
He was in his
he was 50s. Born in like 1728. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that. Yeah, he was much older than the rest of them. John Adams was like a kid, right? Wow. Thomas Jefferson sure was. That's interesting.
So, with that, basically you had young lions, but these 2 old men basically kept the Constitutional Convention going, one way or another. And there is no, what's the word I want to go with? Coincidence in George Washington being chosen President of the United States, the first president, because he literally helped write the Constitution of the United States.
All I know is the HBO series on John Adams. I gotta admit, I don't know that much about the Constitutional Convention.
So
George Washington helped write it?
Yeah. For a matter of fact, the preamble is a coalition between Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. Benjamin Franklin wrote the preamble for the state of Pennsylvania, and it was very wordy.
Yeah.
And George Washington looked at it and basically understand a general has to convey information quickly and precisely. And when you look at the preamble of the United States, you are looking at basically George Washington's final draft.
That is interesting. And I'm sitting here with Rory Houlihan, Winchester's own. We're talking about his campaign against Ryan Dotson, right?
Yeah.
In what district is that?
That's District 73.
Assuming that they don't change all the districts on us, which they're going to.
Well, so far it's District 73, which is Clark County and northern Madison County.
Hey, what's your filing deadline? Trick question.
What is my filing date that I'm planning on doing it? I'm planning on doing it in the middle of December.
Oh, really? Are you going to have a party?
I plan on having a party.
Oh, that's nice. Are you going to? Everybody's going to go to Frankfurt? Do you have to go to Frankfurt to run?
Yes, we have to go.
Because you're state rep.
We have to go to Frankfurt.
Oh, you have to pay the $500 fine.
No, $200.
$200. People out there probably don't know there's different prices for different offices.
Now, if I was running for U.S. Senate, that's $500.
That's the big kahuna. You got to pay a lot of money to run for the statewide offices or for the rep offices. You're a state rep, state senate. What are state senators?
State House of Representatives. So my amount is going to be $200.
And mine is going to be $50.
And my if I want to use the Democratic program, it's going to be, I think, $600 or $700.
What do you mean Democratic? You mean like the
Van,
yeah, minivan and all that?
yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to try to do door to door?
I'll understand if you don't have money.
Yeah.
The only
What
thing
else
you
is there?
can really do is door to door. Understand radio ads cost money. And if you want to help me out, you can. I just got up my Act Blue.
Good for you. Man, I'll tell you.
Going. It's
biggest
on
mistake I
my
made.
Rory Houlihan
Uh-huh.
Facebook page. You can hit that and hopefully it will work.
Tell us if it doesn't. That's Houlihan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rory is Rory. Houlihan is Houlihan. And I am one of like a dozen Rorys in the world, so on Facebook.
Really?
So you should be able to find me. And I guess there's 2 politicians named Rory too.
It's a good name. And there's always Rory Calhoun.
That's why I'm Rory Houlihan, because my dad was a Western. What did it say? He loved his Westerns.
Oh, did he?
And when my grandfather recommended that I have the name Rory, he said, yes.
That's a good name. So where are you originally from?
Originally from a little town called Waukesha, Wisconsin. It's not so little any longer.
Yeah, I've
it's
heard
a
of
lot
it.
like Clark, Winchester. It's about 18 miles west of Milwaukee.
So it's they call us a satellite city, but I don't really like that very much. So how'd you decide on Clark County?
The Honey Bunny.
The Honey Bunny? Oh, your
my
wife?
wife.
Yeah. Is she from Clark?
She is actually from Pineville.
Oh, really? Yeah, I know where
She's
that
from
is.
Pineville, and they all moved down to Florida. And she was working at Albertsons at the video desk, renting out videos. When we first met, I was with my little sister Judy, and she was trying to figure out what she knew that Judy wasn't mine, because there's too much difference here. But she was trying to figure out if I was married to Signal, and she asked me, "Are you gay?" And my answer is no, because all the guys about my age were single were either gay or they were not desirable for.
Well, that's romantic, I suppose.
So
everybody I know that's in a relationship that lasted has some sort of story like that where they start. Like, he was working at the bread counter.
You do know that the best place to find someone for a date is at the grocery store.
That is true. It never worked for me. I always dated women from the Rainbow Gathering. That was my thing.
Okay.
That's who I married too. I mean, I like tough hippie women.
So, if you're having problems getting a date, my advice is to get into the longest line at the grocery store and pick up a conversation with some young lady.
I gotta say though, Rory, like, in most ways, I feel like I'm more or less keeping up with things, but I have no idea what it's like to date today. It must be a nightmare. It just looks upsetting, and the kids look upset. I can't even imagine. Like, you and I dated and married before computers dating came in.
That's true.
Yeah. And I mean, like, You never know when. I hope I'm not verging into defensive territory here, but I've seen some horrible things happen because of computer dating.
I have not, because I'm not part of it.
Yeah, exactly. We're out of it. It's like, and you honestly can't even imagine that world. Like, we can't. It's amazing how fast human beings forget. When your life changes, you seem like you go back normal, but no, I literally do not understand what it's like to be alone.
I've been married for 34 years, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember what it was like before, and I have sympathy for that, but if I was pretending that I even understood what it's like to go through today, like, I don't. I feel a lot of sympathy for people right now. It must be hard to find someone to feel close to, and human beings do not feel okay if they don't have somebody to be close to.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
the Democratic Party needs to fix this, Rory.
Well, we're doing a fine job of isolating people.
Well,
right
that's
now.
For sure. Yeah. That'll help.
And that's because of conservative values.
Yeah. Oh, well, I feel that coronavirus was a real thing. Like, that's a real problem. Making everybody, like, it's like, we have an idea, we hear everybody's upset. So what if everybody just stays in their house and yells at each other on the internet for a year? That didn't help. That didn't make anybody happier.
No, it didn't. And it created a lot of, false, what's the word I want to go with?
The death of consensus reality is what you're discussing, because there's like these days everybody's like, no conspiracy theories except for my conspiracy theory. I roundly and robustly reject Aaron Rodgers, but those Russians are up to something. Or the one I go for is like, as you probably know, I'm a complete Russian denialist. I think that the Russians are mostly just laughing at us. And I think Havana Syndrome is the CIA cooking their own brains with their own anti-sound device, anti-eavesdropping devices, and blaming the Russians. I think that most of what America is going through right now is a paranoid reaction. And that the Russians are a nation of chess players, and they're sitting there going like, one does not interrupt the enemy when the enemy is making a mistake. We don't have to do anything. This is falling apart on its own. But I strongly believe that the CIA assassinated Kennedy. So I can't say that my hands are free of all conspiracy theories.
Okay, well, I don't know if the CIA killed Kennedy or not, or whether it was the Russian government that killed Kennedy.
You think the Russians?
Yeah, because understand, Lee Harvey came from Russia, and he could have very well have been brainwashed and been basically put in the United States to basically assassinate a lone wolf.
You don't think he was sent over to Russia as a CIA agent, and that's why he came back so easily?
I have not read the report, and I will not.
Yeah. No, it's a bit late. I mean, Kennedy died 60 years ago.
Yeah.
You're not going to find the people who did it anymore. Or if you do find them, you're not going to...
They'll be on their deathbed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I was reading Science News the other day. I read something terrifying. DNA tests for on old evidence, not nearly as good as you think it's going to be. Not nearly as good. Apparently, just handling an object is more than enough to contaminate the DNA. So if like somebody, if something's been
skin, cells come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you don't know what to do, especially if you're dealing with something that was done from the inside. Like, let's say, for example, you're looking at DNA evidence on the magic bullet. Let's say you've got Kennedy's magic bullet, and you're looking for DNA evidence on it. And you find evidence that a doctor who was at Dallas General at that time touched it. That tells you nothing. Tells you nothing. Yeah, anyway, it's frustrating because I really want all these past mysteries to come to light. I really do. But in any case, I have very low opinion of the CIA, which I don't think you share, right?
The CIA is just like any other organization. It's got good to it, it's got bad to it.
Oh, like the Republican Party? Name your favorite Republican. That was a trap. I apologize.
Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul.
Between the two, I will take Rand Paul. But I mean, like, if you give me a third option, I'm going to go with Booker. I gotta admit. But,
well, the thing is that we have this mess of a government because of work that has been done by Mitch McConnell.
yeah.
Okay.
In part, yes, for sure.
He has basically created a machine, and it's actually an anti-American, competitive, Democratic, Republican system party.
Yeah.
He's created this anti-American, competitive system party, and we're heading towards a one-party rule, just like in Russia, just like in China.
Very much so. You know why?
Why?
I figured it out. Republicans are socialists. It's so obvious, right? Like, when you start thinking, you're like, yeah, they're socialists, and they create these, like, apparatchiks like they do in Russia and in other socialist communist countries. Like, socialism is alive and well in America, and it just changed its name to the Republican Party. But Mitch McConnell is all about socialism for me and none for thee, which is actually the main critique people have of socialism.
Well, the thing is that if you're not for a living wage,
Yeah.
then you're for government welfare. Because
Essentially, yes. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
because if people cannot
Yeah.
support themselves with the wage they're being given,
Yep.
then ultimately somebody has to do something about it, and that means a government program.
You're right, and they always celebrate these honest-to-God socialist companies like Walmart and Amazon. Amazon could not have done anything like what it did without the U.S. postal system. It's unthinkable. Nobody even imagines Amazon could have done this without taking advantage of the USPS. It is purely so. And you know what else? You know what else? This makes me laugh. So you know that Karl Marx was the primary European observer on the American Civil War, right?
No.
Karl Marx, his big breakthrough was that he was the only person in Europe who thought America was interesting. And he was friends with Charles Henry Dana, who owned the New York Tribune. And he would write these long letters to Charles Henry Dana about the political system in America, and Dana would take his name off and publish them on the front cover, publish them right on the masthead, and the Tribune was the official house organ of the early Republican Party. And Abraham Lincoln liked what he wrote so much that he corresponded with Karl Marx. Personally, they wrote letters back and forth to each other all through the Civil War.
I was not aware of that. I've read a whole lot of Lincoln books, okay?
Well, you know,
band of
America is terrified of the Civil War because the Civil War is the confluence of racism, socialism, and what we did to Native Americans and what we did to women. Nobody wants to talk about the Civil War. But yeah, the Republican Party was absolutely founded reading Karl Marx. And it shows.
No, the Republican Party was actually created in Wisconsin.
Yeah, in that one building. Well, it's a bit complicated, like Fremont and all that. Mm-hmm. Fremont's a weird guy. Hey, we have important things to discuss before I start talking about John Fremont, because he's been dead for 160 years. So, we have 3 questions that we have to hit, which is, we got to talk about Charles Booker.
Okay.
And you got to tell me your honest opinion about Charles Booker. You got to tell everybody what you're running for. And honestly, Rory, as poor rural country mice as we are, why are we Democrats?
Because of the fact that we believe in a competitive economic system and not a non-competitive economic system, number one.
Yeah, we're not socialists like those Republicans.
Okay.
We're capitalists.
I don't know about your background, but I grew up on the back desk of my grandfather's business, real estate business. I've watched, regular, normal business activity on a daily basis.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Democratic Party in his in our city.
What county? I mean, what city? Oh, you just said
Winchester. That would have been Waukesha.
Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I got to see senators like Bill Proxmire.
Mm-hmm.
For a matter of fact, my grandfather talked Bill Proxmire into running
Really?
in the special election in 1959 and helped run his campaign in 1959. And so they were good friends, and he would come by from time to time, and they would talk.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he would make sure that I was in the back seat, in the back desk there to listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have union personnel come in and talk things over, and I'd be sitting in the back desk, listening to them.
That's good grandfathering right there.
It was good grandfathering back then.
Yeah.
So,
Not being able to take kids to work anymore is a shame. But anyway.
to understand, I would call it the entrepreneurial class
Mm-hmm.
has been decimated over the last 40 years. Okay, we've corporatized, but we've gone to war against the small businesses.
We sure have.
And
We didn't even mean to, and it happened.
this last pandemic,
Yeah. The weird thing is, you know what, though? They were trying to help.
well, understand you have mutation over the, what is that called? The SEEP, no, PPP program.
Mm-hmm.
And he made sure that the money went first to the very wealthy.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not talking about that. I was talking about, like, all the efforts to help and save small businesses through the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s have clearly completely failed. I mean, the best you can say is maybe they prevent or they slowed something that would happen anyway. The grift of the Trump campaign is a different thing. Or the Trump administration, I should say.
Understand, when we started exporting jobs and manufacturing over to China,
Mm-hmm.
it became almost impossible for small businesses to have a supply line.
Yeah, that's very true.
So
Their supply line was so often go buy it at Walmart like everybody else. And how can you have a successful business when you're...
supplies come from China,
Yeah.
in which you have to order a ton of stuff to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back in the battle days, you could buy small lots from local producers,
Yeah.
but the local producers were all bought up and shipped out to China because we did not have protections, we did not utilize protections against small and mid-sized manufacturers, and we allowed the multinationals to basically run amok and ship jobs and opportunities
Yeah.
over to China. We basically cut off the good little manufacturers, or they got bought up.
Mm-hmm.
It's consolidate to collapse, or it's to buy to bankrupt.
Get big or get out.
Yeah, basically. Well, that's what the ALP system is. The always lower price game is. It's the inferior goods game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we've been on the inferior goods game since 1972, when Richard Nixon put our farmers on the ALP system, and we went from something like 20,000 farms down to about 400.
You mean in Clark County?
No.
Or in general, in the realm?
Is it? No.
Oh, you mean businesses? 20,000? What do you, I don't understand. 20,000?
Large.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, you're right. Nixon.
We understand the farms were at the beginning of this at 160 acres.
Oh, I
and
see
now
what you're
the
saying.
average farm is something like 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ungodly.
Farming is a hard business now.
And most of the farmers are in the 60s and are being basically pushed out.
I got asked, because we live in the same general area, do you understand what's going on? Because it looks to me like the fields are all completely dead and nobody's harvesting anything.
There's nobody working.
Is that why all those crops are dying in the field? Because they can't find anybody to harvest them?
Yeah, understand, Donald Trump put a wrench into our southern system of bringing people in.
Well, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
migrant workers.
Wow.
Basically, one day
Mm-hmm.
there were migrant workers to work the fields, and the next day they were gone.
No, that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true.
It started first in
So
Georgia.
You're telling me that all those fields around me that are filled with crops, they look dead. I mean, the soybeans right behind me look really dead. They don't look like they grew well at all. But you're telling me that like all that seed corn and all that soy is just dying in the field because they can't find enough people to harvest it.
Basically,
That's
some of it
mind-boggling.
is absolutely true.
Yeah.
You gotta have people.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Wow, farming is really, like, farming is a lottery lifestyle. People don't realize how precarious the farming life is. Like, you work 10 years for one good crop. You know, the entire thing with farming is that you're supposed to have, like, one crop that comes in well, and then you're supposed to save that, invest that, and somehow live for years until the next time the weather just lines up perfectly.
Fortunately, actually, Kentucky is going to be one of the lucky states.
Uh-huh.
We'll have our weather now is a fire, flood, and freak.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of like a weather battlefield state. And we've been a weather battlefield state historically back to the pre-Stone Age, the Ice Age, literally speaking.
Yeah, that's why the Ohio River is where the glaciers stopped. That's why it's flat north of the Ohio and hilly south of it. So yeah, you're right. Kentucky has always been a sort of like, and Winchester specifically. You know, Winchester has its own geological area.
Yes.
I think that's so cool. What a weird place we live in.
You know that there's over 234 species of trees in Kentucky. Kentucky has more species of trees than any place else in this country.
Really? I did not know that.
Because of the amount of different geographical and climatological areas.
Yes.
And also for the fact that the mountainous areas actually create microclimates.
Yeah, they sure
in
do.
which a certain species will grow there and basically only there.
I adore Kentucky. You know, the people that came in and logged the state flat back 150 years ago, oh, I hate them.
Well,
they've all gone to their rewards, you know, but like, oh, I hate them. I hate them.
Ohio was a forested area.
It was a forested swamp,
Back in the Civil War, or before the Civil War happened, there were actually large areas of forests. You could actually, a squirrel could go from the East Coast to the Mississippi and never touch the ground.
Yep.
Literally speaking.
And all these, you know what happened to all these things all these trees when they were cut down? They were shipped to the Midwest to make these farming towns that are ghost towns now. And all these trees were chopped down and whittled down to toothpicks, and you can go out and visit them. Their roof beam is rotting in the middle of Nebraska now. For nothing.
Well,
human beings are hideous to trees. I hate what we do to trees.
Well, the thing is that we've always had an exploitation industry. Whether it was mining coal.
Yep. Extraction.
The extraction industry.
And they always extract the wealth and then leave nothing behind. Like, look at all the mansions in eastern Kentucky that those timber barons left, right? Look at all the splendor that they made of Powell County. Like, no, they didn't do nothing for Menifee. That's why it all makes so much more sense now that I realize that Americans are socialist without being honest about it. Like, that's why you get out into eastern Kentucky and you know, you talk to people of eastern Kentucky, and one of them will say, like, oh, they're all socialists, and the other one will say, like, oh, they're all conservatives. They're actually both right. There's not this big contradiction that people imagine there is. It's just the labels.
Understand, the Democratic Party is the party of folks who want to get a certain issue done. Okay?
Interesting. Okay.
The Republican Party is a rightward movement vehicle to spread the rightward conservative gospel.
Okay, I see it a little different, but yeah, all right. I agree with you.
That's why they're better at communicating than we are.
The Republicans are the biggest group of people who will go along with the most stuff in order to get what they want. in order to be on the winning side. It's an amorphous mass. You know, people are always falling off the side, like our buddy Chuck Eddy, but they are the largest group of people that will put up with, you know, you've got like X percentage of people that will put up with X percentage of stuff in order to be on the side that's winning, and they're hard to beat.
Well,
We're going to have a real problem next year, Rory.
When we were talking about the 9 secrets
Yeah.
of it, and on page 11,
Yeah.
it says dirty tricks.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Page
I
11.
like dirty tricks.
Page 11.
The only
dirty
tricks that are left. I mean, you have to be clever these days in order to be a politician. Like, so much of... That's why I think Steve Bashir is such a good politician. Because he's so tricky.
And it actually starts, dirty tricks actually starts on page 10.
Yeah,
And
he
you know
starts right
about
off.
Benford's Law, right?
Yeah.
The first 10 pages, if there isn't a catch, it's not going to be read. Okay?
I hate to tell you, but most books aren't going to be read anyway. But yes.
On page 10, let's read it. Daley had a keen political sense. It was uncanny. Like a handicapper at a track, he could survey candidates at the paddock and pick the winner.
Yeah.
He did in 2005 when he fingered a little-known Torrance for city councilman named Ted Lieu to win our district vacant assembly seat. At the time of this writing, Lieu is in the House of Representatives
I think so, yeah.
and will probably be there for many, many years. Daley had a cold, calculating, objective eye in the field of dominated by people who make decisions based on emotion and hope, and this was a rare gift, like being
Very much so.
able to play music by ear or match patterned shirts and striped ties. Some folks are able to do it, and they probably don't even know why. Daley's political beta noir
That's-in-law.
was a local political operative. Let's call him Horace Blatt. When he wasn't plotting with Daley, Blatt had a campaign counseling business that specialized in political mail. The specialty? Blatt's house specialty was slate mail. Blatt's slate mailers, like all slate mailers, were anything but carefully crafted political messages. The LA Weekly newspaper described the practice thusly: campaign literature tends to fall somewhere between glib hyperbole and outright deceit. Perhaps no other area is this more evident than in the seedy world of slate mailers. Ready to become a little more cynical about politics? The groups who purportedly publish these slate mailers are fictional, and the endorsements they offer are almost always made up. Political sultans pick titles for their mailers that will resonate with a targeted segment of the voting population. For example, women between the ages of 25 and 40 who are likely to have school-aged children will probably respond to a slate titled Educational Professionals Voter's Guide. Republican voters, on the other hand, might make voting choices based on a piece of mail put out by a make-believe Conservative Voters League. Then finally on page 11, we get to the rest of it, if my computer will let me. Daley and Blatt used their skills with political mail to great effort in 2006 when they ran Daley's wife, Lynn Olson, for a Superior Court judgeship. Lynn Olson was, according to an editorial in the LA Times, an inactive attorney who ran the Manhattan Bread and Bagel with her husband in Hermosa Beach City Council member Dick Daley. Okay. A California judge is appointed by the governor but must stand for election every 6 years. And incumbent judges rarely draw a challenge, but if they do, there is an election. In June 6, 2016 election cycle, Daley and Blatt targeted registered Republican Superior Court Judge Disra Genovas.
Desintra Genovs. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. As you read this sentence, the same thought bubble probably appeared above your head that appeared the head of virtually every voter in Los Angeles County who saw that name on the ballot. Is Genovas a man or a woman? What kind of name is that? Her strangely foreign androgynous name obscured the fact that she was one of the most respected jurists in Los Angeles County, if not the state. In fact, the Bolt Hall educated Genovas was one of only 2 lawyers in Los Angeles County Bar Associated rated exceptional, well qualified for the bench in that election. Olson, the Bar Associated rated her as not qualified.
This was politics.
This is what politics has become, not what politics should be.
In fairness, the last name problem goes back to the beginning of this country. It really does. But yeah, you're right. It is what it is and always has been. For sure.
Yes, this was politics again. Qualifications didn't matter. It does, folks. It matters a whole lot.
Well, it matters when you're in office.
Well, understand, you're putting people in office who are basically idiots, but will follow what they're being told.
Well, you know, not to criticize too much, but I think Reagan initiated the era of the actor as a politician for us all, where, you know, they're just like, we haven't had a statesman in office in the presidency since Jimmy Carter. They're front men, because front men are better for the job than statesmen and people with real opinions, people that really want to run things. You know, I'm sure you're not going to agree with me here.
That's back to the dark side.
Well, I don't have the same high opinion of Biden that you probably do.
The answer is that Biden is an old-time Democrat who believes that government can work and that people can come to an agreement, but he's now dealing with a anti-establishment, anti-American system party.
Well, I would just say
that,
in my opinion, those things were true when Biden was alive.
Well,
but now
it's gotten even worse.
It's pretty clear that Biden, to me, that Biden is a front man whose job is to essentially deliver the proclamations for a faction. And he is. I know that all presidents are a team. There's no such thing as a president, and hasn't been for generations. There's no such thing as a president who stands alone. But I don't think Biden is really in any direct way in charge of anything except for nap time. You know, they trot him out. You're looking at me like you're not pleased with what I'm saying here, but I think they trot him out for the camera, and I think that's the end of it. But.
Of course, politicians have to trot out in front and say what they have to say. Okay. But again, I'm a whole lot... I don't have to worry about a tweet every 15 minutes with Biden.
Oh, God, Trump was annoying.
Okay. I don't have to worry about him tearing apart another institution that's supposed to protect us when we need to be protected, okay, like the EPA.
No, I think the Biden administration. I'm in a strange situation because I'm one of the only people that's actually happy with the Biden administration. But that's because I had such incredibly low expectations that, like, just the fact that we're out of Afghanistan, I'm willing to put up with for a lot. But there's some very reasonable criticisms so far.
Understand, it's butter or guns.
Yeah. Are you sure that we're the party of butter?
The answer is that I believe Eisenhower put it very succinctly, and there is a military congressional.
The military industrial complex.
Congressional complex.
How nice of him to tell us after he was retiring.
Well, he actually created the military complex. You have to understand that. And then he realizes what he has done. And on January 17th, 1961, in his farewell address, he warns us that we have to find balance between the military complex and investment in our own domestic country's needs, the schools,
Well, I agree.
the roads, the
100%,
dams, and we've never done that. When we look at the every time we've had an economic downturn, Europe has turned around and invested in their roads and in the schools. They use and their bridges and things, all their infrastructure when things are cheap. We turn around and we buy more guns, bombs, and
$1 billion for the Iron Dome in Israel.
Correct.
Hey,
So
I got to play something real fast, and then we will gather our thoughts. But you are listening to Rory Houlihan of Winchester, Kentucky, running for the 73rd District congressional seat as a Democrat, running against Ryan Dotson. Solid advice from the aliens, and I do want to point out that this has been a terrible year. 2021 has been one of the worst years I've ever experienced, but perhaps one of the worst things about this year is the fact that it's become so clear that there are no aliens, and it was just the CIA testing drones the entire time. And the crop circles really were just drunk CIA dudes running around fields with boards, and it's all fake, y'all. Sorry. I was really into it too. Like, I'm looking at a picture of a flying saucer right now. Sorry, y'all. I'm really depressed about it too. If you heard it here first, sorry, there's no aliens.
well, I kind of have to disagree.
You think so?
Oh, well, when you have one fly about 20 feet above your head, late in a winter's night as you are going home, you tend to believe in them.
Well, hold on. I got to make something clear. Mothman's real, but the UFOs aren't. So, did you see a UFO or did you see Mothman?
I saw a round sausage-shaped, what at first I thought it was an airplane, come over the hill.
Where? In Kentucky?
No, in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And fly right over me. I was riding my bike
Yeah.
and head straight down the road. And it could not, at first I thought it was like a Piper Cump because it had 3 lights to it. And the configuration kind of sort of looked like it. But once you got over that light, it's like...
Yeah, they have drones. They have drones, and they've had, drones. They've had drones for 50 years. They are just now letting us have them. Who knows what else they have? But it's them. Like, if you look at a map of UFO sightings, like worldwide UFO sightings, they are all in America. They are all near military bases. Now, I like the theory that the gray aliens are us from the future that have come back to save us from ourselves. But it's just so obvious that it's just so obvious now that they've got, because they're talking about all these UFO documents and they want to release them and they don't want to release them, and you can see who's pushing it. I'm sorry, it's just I can't follow it.
Let's go back to our daily. And Blatt knew the only thing that mattered was their target's name.
Yes.
David Lee told me during the election in 2006 that they picked Genovas. The surname is Lafian. Her family fled the Russians after World War II precisely because the judge's name sounded like it was an unknown, faraway place. Remember, June 26th was not too far removed from September 11th, 2001. And Daly and Blatt cynically bet that most red-blooded Americans, Angelos, would sooner punch their ballot for an all-American sounding Lynn Olson than they would for a godless corner of the world is that name from Desra Genovas.
They're not wrong, but that is always phrased as an insult to the people that are doing the voting and not the people that perceive that, and I think it's backwards.
And they were right. Daley's wife spent $120,000 on political mailers, and the voters in Los Angeles County tossed Judge Genovas out of office, giving Olson a 56% of the vote. According to the Los Angeles Times, Genovas was the first sitting judge defeated for a re-election in 18 years. So dismayed was the California State Bar that a few days after the election, then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger specially reappointed Genovas to the Los Angeles County Superior Court.
Good.
Insert your "I'll be back."
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I get it, but I mean, the thing is that they're right. But also, we should be better than that. And it puts politics in a weird spot because there is no person who's the lowest common denominator. Yes, the lowest common denominator of American is more threatened by the name Janovis than they are by the name Olson. But there's no, especially liberals, always imagine that there's a bunch of lowest common denominators and they're hanging out in a field at a tractor pull or something like that. There's no person who's the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator is the combination of thousands and millions of people, and the more people you get, the more solid the LCD is. It takes on an almost religious significance to me. There is a huge space between any given person and the LCD, right? You're not the lowest common denominator. Like, even though people think that you live on a back road, you live on Ironworks Road in Winchester, Kentucky, in Clark County, so people think this guy's a Republican. He's probably never even seen a Black Lives Matter poster. They have no idea that there's a barn down the street from you with a BLM poster on it, right? They make these assumptions. They're like, oh, look at the Republicans with what they just did, and they're like, there was a referendum and we got rid of Henry Branham. And like, no, you beat him by 500 votes, and they were all straight ticket votes. You gamed the system. So the lowest common denominator is real, but it doesn't represent any given person. It's like the space in your house has a floor. But if your house was just a floor, it wouldn't be much of a house, right? The house of America has a ceiling. It has many rooms. It has walls, but it also has a foundation. And our politics is stuck at the foundation. And I don't think representative democracy can get away from the foundation. So what you have when you have so many millions of people in any given vote, thousands of people, in order for you to beat Ryan Dotson, how many people have to pull that lever for you? Like 18,000?
Yeah, something about
That's
that.
a mind-bogglingly large number of people. 18,000 people. You and I together, you work at Lowe's. You and I together probably don't know 18,000 people. Celebrities don't know 18,000 people. That's more people than any human being can shake the hands of, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's where Baco says it's a waste of time to put your yard signs out. You should be on radio and TV and... Sort of, yes and no. Yard signs, I've heard the yard signs don't vote argument so many times. The fact is the yard signs claim territory. But I will tell you that the people who won the last election had their yard signs out at the very beginning of the election cycle, and the two people who lost the election were those who followed the rules and put those out right on the date of 30 days ahead. Exactly. And 2019, who was the only Democratic candidate in Kentucky who did not neglect his yard sign game all the way into the primary? Andy Beshear. Okay. Andy Beshear was the only one who really... And then here in Lexington, the guy that we're trying to get rid of, Wade McNabb, the pedophile constable. And I hope you're hearing this, and I hope you're annoyed by that. The pedophile constable did not neglect his yard sign game. Very good with yard signs. Okay. It matters. It claims territory in people's minds. So, I mean, but this guy's right in that, like, a huge amount of what politicians do for election is performative or done for their own. Politicians, one of the reasons I seem to do so well around politicians is I understand them. They're people who can't leave, they can't go to sleep if there's a T that hasn't been crossed or an I that hasn't been dotted. They don't know exactly what makes people win or lose elections. They can't quite accept that in a lot of ways it's just random. So they have to, they can't sleep unless they've done everything. They're very completist type people. That makes me not a politician. Well, I'm not. You in a previous era would have been mayor, but we are not in the previous era. 100 years ago, I'd be a doctor. Because I would have just at one point said, in my 20s, I would have just said, I'm a doctor. And nobody would have been around to contradict me. And I would have been a doctor for the rest of my life. Can't do that anymore. Back in the old days, you would have been downtown in Winchester all day, every day, shaking everybody's hands. You'd be mayor for 18 years. But you can't shake 18,000 hands.
You sure can't shake 36,000. The numbers are just too big. So, but what I'm saying is, these people that have figured out where the lowest common denominator are sort of gross and weird.
Well, they're the dailies and...
Yeah, and they win, but what do you say about somebody who, like...
But they win through the dark side.
Yeah. It is dark side thought. It is. No, it is. It's really like buying a beautiful house and spending all your time rolling around on the floor in the basement. It is. And the fact that it works doesn't change the fact that it's weird and gross.
But that's also why you folks have to endure, the last 2 months of an election in which you hear nothing but negative ads because of the fact that the dark side is what gets voted on.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to stop the dark side, my advice is that if you hear a negative ad, you put this guy's name down on a piece of paper as someone you never want to vote for.
Oh, so a double negative. Like 2 no's make a yes. If you say no, then I say no to you saying no.
If you want somebody who will run a positive campaign and on issues and find solutions for you, okay, you need to find someone who will talk about the positive, about how to solve a problem, not about someone who is shopping for a problem to be solved.
Well, that's also, see, that's some LCD thinking right there, because the person the person who's successful in business is the person who comes up with the problem and the solution for the problem, right?
Yeah, but they never come up with a solution. They just create a problem and then they create an issue and.
No, I mean, I will say this for Chris Pace. Chris Pace really understood this. He came up with performative solutions and one big symbolic thing that everybody could see. And this is, I wish, Henry, I hope you're listening, because we got to think of something like this. He came up with performative nonsense solutions, like the ultrasound machine for the pregnancy crisis center and the gun-free, he made Winchester a gun sanctuary.
Yes, he made him a gun sanctuary.
Gun sanctuary. So your guns are safe in Winchester from now on, because that was a thing. Guns were walking the street, they were terrorized. But now guns feel safe in Clark County. And also he put 2 inches of blacktop on every damn street in the entire county. Yeah. So people had something real to look at and a bunch of red meat to imagine. It was really good. It was smart. Smart guy. Really was. And we need to do something like that. We have to do something like that. But okay, so I'm ranging. But the point is that the lowest common denominator is real. The people who are really good at it are weird and spend all their time rolling in the dirt. And I don't like them. I don't like them as people. But the only way out of it is not to be highfalutin. You can't, you can't solve the problem in your basement by building another floor on your house, right? Mm-hmm. You can't raise the ceiling. That's not going to work. You need to raise the floor. You need to improve the foundation. Civics classes, being nice to people that disagree with you, which, by the way, you are excellent at. Each one teach one, bringing people in. That's what's going to change this. The voters are, sad to say, the problem. Straight ticket voters. People that vote because they like your last name. Not to be elitist, and I feel like I have my own record to stand on here. I'm not an elitist. I was one of the people that helped get all these felons their right to vote back, but also I'm realistic about it. I'm realistic about all these long-term health. Do you know about this? All these long-term care centers in Kentucky that think that Election Day is just a fun outing, and they take all the patients to go vote?
Yes. What? Understand, my mom was in a long-term care center.
No, it's wonderful, but also talk about introducing randomness into the system. People who are literally completely disconnected from everything around them are going to vote based on what name appeals to them the most.
And or based upon party affiliation.
Yeah, well, that's the name,
they grew up
Like
grew up with.
I
So-
prefer my D with a little R with a little line coming out of the bottom. Dang it, But yeah, I mean, like, it's not these people should vote, and it's their right. No. It is their right to vote, and their right to vote must be protected. They should not vote until they know what they're doing.
Well,
But they're
that's
going to.
why they want same-day voting. Okay?
Why?
Because the people who are the smartest voters, believe it or not, are those who do mail-in ballots. Because before they fill out the ballot, they look up the people
Yeah.
running. Okay? So you end up with the more intelligent vote in the mail-in ballots.
I wouldn't put it as intelligent, but informed.
More
Informed is better
informed.
than intelligent here.
More informed voting.
I think
Occurring
the
at the-
recent Democratic Party proves that
Normally
intelligent people
the-
that aren't paying attention are no use.
Normally on same-day ballots, they either are doing a party or they've quickly Googled you.
Yeah, they're standing in there with and they've got their kid with them, and they're like, because it's important to learn to vote. And they're like, what's a Genovs? Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay? And they get to see often the person's name for the first time on the ballot in the booth itself.
Yeah. Now, see, I don't know if you agree with this, but when I'm voting, and I have a race that I don't know, I don't vote. If I don't know who's
You
running for
know
circuit
that
judge,
there
I leave it
was
out.
something like, I forgot, like 1,200 ballots
Yeah.
that had not been totally filled that left our race out.
What do you mean our race? Which race?
The House of Representatives race.
Oh,
completely
really?
Out. The second page
Yeah.
was not filled out completely. They just filled the presidential and the statewide.
Yeah.
And they didn't fill
Yeah.
the state or the local.
I believe it, because people are busy, and they have other
And
concerns.
they didn't know
and they-
who to vote for, so they
Yeah.
didn't vote for anyone.
Civics is not taught in class. The ballots are confusing, and they are weird, and I do not blame people for not being able to vote accurately, but it leads to a crazy system like we've got here. And it's getting worse because straight ticket voting is diabolical. I mean, if you and I were really serious, this is the problem that we're all having right now. I think that all Democrats are having right now. Like, I don't know about you, but Nancy Pelosi doesn't speak for me. I don't feel any strong political affinity when I hear Nancy Pelosi talk. I feel embarrassed. Joe Biden embarrasses me. These are rich, old, out-of-touch, crazy people that don't care about Kentucky at all. Right?
Well, Mitch McConnell's just as...
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just because one thing's bad doesn't mean another. No,
It's good.
You're making me verge. Okay, because you're
It's the question of bad or worse.
I want to drop this on you, and it's going in a different direction. So we're just going to agree. This is a small digression, and we're not going to follow this. But the idea that our government cannot have a conclusively negative and counterproductive reaction to a global pandemic that gets more people killed than if they'd never done anything is conclusively disproven.
All our wars.
Fauci was the guy who sold AZT. Fauci is directly responsible for the prolongation of the AIDS epidemic. Directly. And I'm not like, this isn't recent. My mom was an AIDS researcher at this school where we are right now in the 80s. I remember Fauci very well. He was the guy that sold an ineffective cancer-causing drug to AIDS patients because he had the copyright on it, or the patent number on it.
I was not aware of that.
And then he died. Somebody's calling in. They died. Hello. Rory, please continue. I'm going to stop talking about Fauci now. Hello, WRFL. I am. Oh, yeah. Hold on just one second, because nobody can hear you. Nobody can hear you, and we're on the radio, so we have to have people talking. So if you promise to not use any bad words, I will turn you on so you can talk, okay? You want? Yeah, here you go. Okay, I'm going to set it up. Rory, what's your name, by the way?
Houlihan, H-O-U.
Oh, I know, your name's Houlihan. No, what's your name, sir? Zach. Okay, if I hang up on you, it is by accident, and I want you to call right back. I'm just trying to figure out how to turn on speakerphone right now. You there, Zach?
Good. Okay.
All right, Zach. Now, you made a promise to not use any bad words.
I'll do my best.
And now you may say whatever you like, sir.
I don't know. I just been listening to you and this guy talk for about an hour now, or however long. But I keep hearing this guy go back to like, well, you know, Donald Trump was so bad, and Mitch McConnell so bad. Every time you bring up these dudes, you know, like Pelosi and Joe Biden not doing anything for anybody, and I gotta say that his take is just as bad as the, you know, Republican straight ticket voters of like, oh, well, they're bad, so we gotta stick with these Democrats no matter what. Well, it's just like you said, Nancy Pelosi ain't doing nothing for Kentucky. She ain't doing nothing for the people of San Francisco. She ain't doing nothing for her own people. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whose side of the aisle you're on. Everybody recognizes that the big problem is that the big players are all playing for the big money, and that ain't us.
I think it's. What do you think, Rory?
Big players are playing to their constituents, and they're also playing to their supporters in monetary.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I don't. That's why I disagree.
That's why so many
giving them a big pile of $1 million. You know, the corporations are. They don't care. No. I have yet to see an elected official in Washington D.C. that gives half a word I'm not supposed to say about what their constituents think. They just care about cashing that next check.
I'm just going to throw this out here.
See it over and over and over again.
Like, this isn't a trick or anything. I'm honestly curious. Do you think that applies to Senator Sanders, too?
I mean, he might be one of the select few that don't.
So you're like, you're not like they're all automatically evil, but like they mostly are not. It's not working out for most of them, right?
I don't even know if I would throw out the word evil. That nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't care about the future of America. She's old. She don't got no future in America.
She's got, like,
you know what I mean? She's getting as much as she can get right now.
Yeah.
And moving on.
I mean, I know it is weird. Like, who's the guy in Lexington Louisville, who just filed to run again and he's 90? Like,
yeah, that's absurd.
It is a little bit strange. What do you think about that, Rory?
90 years old and filing to run. I understand it's everybody's right to run for office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if he lives through his term, that's beautiful. If he doesn't live through his term,
it leaves us in a state.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it does. Like, this is... okay, this is, to me... like I keep saying, I was a student of history, but you know me, I read a lot of books, like I always have. Like, the reason the Whig Party isn't around anymore is because they had 2 presidents die in a row, and human beings, at the end of the day, are cowardly and superstitious creatures who will not vote for a party where the president keeps dying. They just won't. People don't... That's not what we're looking for in an alpha male. You have to project health and vitality and strength, and we aren't doing that. And I mean, like, putting up these people... When putting up these people gives the impression that we have no one else, and when not only do we have other people, but they're champing at the bit, it starts to feel almost like we're being betrayed.
Yeah, and I'm of the camp that there's not a whole lot of significant difference between the administrations of Donald Trump and the administrations of Joe Biden. This other guy you're interviewing here, there is this big sigh of relief. Like, I don't have to read tweets anymore. Yeah. I don't give half a rip about mean tweets. I need something done. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, you know, where's the Medicaid? Where's the wages? Where's everything that Joe Biden ran on? Where's everything that he promised that he was going to get going? You know what I mean? Everything, every concession that he said that he'd get done to meet, you know, the Sanders camp expectations. And boy, how he left that stuff behind even faster than we all said he would.
I gotta admit, I am... Oh, Rory, I'm sorry. Please continue, Rory.
That's the problem when you have an entire political party that is an anti-system party and is basically acting as a bloc. So instead of having 50 votes against you, you have Manchin and Sinema being 52 Okay,
They're also
and
being used as excuses.
I see what you're saying, but if you're telling me that the system is if the Republicans are the anti-system party and the Democrats are the system party, man, I'm so fed up with the system. I don't want them either.
Yeah,
and I think you're going to run into people that are so fed up with the system. The anti-system party is going to appeal to them, whether they understand they think they're trolling the system, not enabling fascism. You know what I mean? They think they're voting for Trump because it's funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I remember when I voted in the last election, there were 17-year-old kids wearing military fatigues and their red hats doing poll watching. You know what I mean? I mean, we're in some bad places right now.
Wow, where did that happen?
This smack center in Lexington. This was Southern Elementary voting location.
No, that's extremely not good.
Kentucky.
Wow.
I've got photographs to prove it. They were mean mugging me.
That's wow. That's...
Yeah, I don't think anybody is realistically acknowledging how close to the precipice of some legitimately, scary collapse level stuff we're dealing with right now. Yeah. And we're all still realizing this guy's the bad guy, no, this guy's the bad guy, and I think everybody needs to realize that everybody's the bad guy.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%, man, and we are in free fall right now. There's really no telling what tomorrow will bring. And I mean, I definitely agree with you that, I feel like the National Democrats are completely asleep at the switch.
Well, if we were not asleep at the switch, and understand to delay is to deny, okay? And that's what Manchin and Sinema are doing. They're delaying the actions.
Yep, they're
okay? Pushing. And the Republicans are basically helping them out do that by acting as a group of no.
But actually, wait, I want to go back to something, because Zach, I think this is something I disagree with.
A few can ruin things for the many.
Oh, absolutely. But I think this is something that I disagree with both Zach and myself on, because I think Rory does have a really good point here, which is that if we are actually on the edge of some really, 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 crazy stuff, like people putting on uniforms and standing on the opposite sides of fields and shooting at each other, at some point...
I believe we're going to see America balkanize itself in our lifetime.
Yeah, I actually think we're going to try to invade Russia and it'll cause a governmental collapse, but I'm a big Cyberpunk fan. But my point is that, at some point you actually do have to pick a side or go hide on a farm. And I'm going to go hide on a farm. But
I'm out there already.
Yeah, we're already out in the country, and Zach, I think you should too. But at some point you actually do have to pick a side, and you know what? Team loyalty is part of this game.
I agree with you that at some point people have to pick a side. The thing that I don't think enough Americans realize is that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are on the same side, and it's hard.
There's that.
This Rory dude you're talking about Joe Biden's a classical Democrat. If a classical Democrat is just what a Republican was when I was 10, then he's got a valid point.
Well, no, he does.
Joe Biden is a George Bush Republican through and through.
Yeah, I don't know how old you are, but Rory and I clearly recall Joe Biden from the 80s when he was called Senator Credit Card. We remember the omnibus crime bill. I don't know if it hurt you as much to vote for Joe Biden in the name of being against racism as it did me, but oh my God, did that hurt. I didn't vote for him, but I
didn't vote for Joe Biden. I voted for, I wrote in Howie Hawkins.
You want to be the guest on the next show, dude? This is pretty good.
I don't know if I'm important enough for that. I'm just a door dasher.
Oh, yeah, we're important.
I've got to go drop some food off, so I'm going to have to get off the phone here.
All right, well, hey, man, it was a real pleasure. Call in anytime.
Have a good day. Thank you for your thoughts.
Yeah, if you're curious, if you look tomorrow on the WRFL FM website, there's an archive of this. If you want to, it's always fun to listen in when you're on the radio.
Okay.
That might be fun.
All right, well, go DoorDash, dude.
Okay.
We'll think your thoughts.
And
I appreciate it, bud. Have a nice day.
Later, man. That was fun.
Let's go in.
Nice guy.
Somebody needs to maybe give some qualification. Can I read
Sure.
the farewell speech for Eisenhower?
Fantastic idea.
Okay. Now, let me find it.
Oh, well, you gotta have it up when you... Okay.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. First, I would like to express my gratitude to the radio and television networks for the opportunities they have given me over the years to bring reports and messages to our nation. My special thanks go to them for the opportunity of addressing you this evening. 3 days from now, after half a century of service to our nation, I shall lay down my responsibilities of office as both traditional and solemn ceremony of the authority of the presidency is vested in my successor. This evening I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, to share a few final thoughts to my countrymen. Like every other citizen, I wish the new president and all that labor with him Godspeed. I pray that the coming years will be blessed and peace and prosperity for all. Our people expect their president and the Congress to find essential agreement on issues of great moment, the wise resolution of which will better shape the future of our nation. My own relations with the Congress, which began on a remote and tenuous basis when long ago a member of the Senate appointed me to West Point, have since ranged from the intimate, during the war and immediately post-war period, and finally to a mutually interdependent during these past 8 years. In this final relationship, the Congress and the administration have on most vital issues cooperated well to serve the nation's good, rather than mere partisanship. So, have assured that the business of the nation should go forward. My official relationship with the Congress ends in a feeling, on my part, of gratitude that we have been able to do so much together. That's what we want our government to be.
Yeah, bipartisanship is essential.
And we are not going to get that in the current system right now.
Yeah.
Because the fact is that, we have gerrymandering basically making it very almost impossible. They're picking their voters.
Your district may very well go to the Rio Grande.
Okay? And because they're picking their voters, they really don't have to be able to adapt. There's no cooperation there. I represent these voters. These voters are going to vote for me no matter what, and I don't have to do anything to get reelected. Okay? And right now we have weather nows of fire, flood, and freak, and they're getting worse and worse. And because there is no cooperation, okay, there is no action. Okay? We have the pandemic going on, and with over 700,000 people. This is more people that have died these last couple years than in all the wars that we have been in, including the Civil War, which was a bloodbath.
And there's an enormous number of people who have died, not from the pandemic, but just died. The amount of death that I and everybody I know have been through. I know
of at least 2 people who have died of cancer because they could not get treated. Because the rooms that they needed to be treated in were held by COVID residents.
I don't put any blame on the COVID residents for that at all. We have a collapsing system, and the system was not designed for this, and people are trying to make the system into something it isn't, and then blaming the poor for it. I'm very much against it, but you're right. There's a lot
The system was collapsing, yes, because we've been playing the always lower price game, and things are getting worse and worse instead of better and better.
Sure, but in fairness compels me to point out that I also know somebody who died from the vaccination, and I know a fair number of old people who died from the isolation of the quarantine, and that is not in any way an exaggeration. Like, you can look at my own very dear grandmother. You can look at a picture of her from March 2020 and a picture of when she died in February 2021. Those months by herself.
And loneliness.
Absolutely. There's been a holocaust in America's nursing homes. We've lost so many It hurts to even think about. And that is not, they did not die of coronavirus. And again, in Clark County, 36 people have died of coronavirus. But a lot more than 36 people have died in the last year. A lot more. It's almost like a war.
Yeah, because you have this added stuff going on.
Yeah, the stress right now is unreal. And we're so isolated in our homes that we don't even have the regular help. Like somebody was reading, I think this is specious, but like somebody's talking about like there's like what hundreds of thousands of cases of child abuse that are going unreported because there weren't teachers around for a year. I'm a little bit, I think that's more than a bit speculative, but there's a kernel of truth in there. You know,
you have people cooped up, and they aren't used to having kids around 24/7. Understand you have a whole ton of moms who, literally speaking, cannot go back to work because there is no daycare for them. I had a gal tell me about 2 months ago that she's on a waiting list for 2 years to get into a daycare center.
Thank God that, thank God for my wife.
But we can't pass a bill that basically would fund the early childhood development program from 3 years old to 6 years old.
You're absolutely right, and that is why I am going to change the subject right now to what are you going to do for Clark County, Mr. Houlihan? What's in it for me if I vote for you?
What will I do next?
Besides a smile.
Okay, first thing off.
You got my vote in the primary. You got my vote in the general. What are you going to do when you're our next representative?
Well, the answer is that we've got to start hardening our cities from the weather nows of weather, fire, flood, and freak. We just got a huge flood in the middle of downtown Clark County.
Yeah. And we're not the only ones. You know, other counties have been getting hit by those weird instant floods. But for the people who are listening who don't know, Clark County on October 6th, I want to say October 6th, downtown Clark County got hit with 10 inches of rain in less than an hour. Somebody made God very angry at the corner of Boone and Maple. And he or she or they, I'm not going to impute a gender on God, but whoever it was, Zeus, dumped 10 inches of rain on my beloved Winchester and collapsed buildings they collapsed viaducts that date back 100 years. An entire building, like the bottom fell out of a building.
Yes.
It was crazy, and we can't get FEMA help for it because only Clark County was affected. Like, in order to get FEMA help, you need $6.2 million of damage in the state.
It's too localized.
Yeah, and Clark County is not worth $6.2 million, so we get nothing. So anyway, fire and flood, yes, got it. Continue.
That has to be done at the state level because FEMA, being a national, has restrictions to it. So that funding has to happen. Okay. We have an educational system that is under attack.
Yep.
Okay. And I was, literally speaking, a treasurer of early childhood development.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
You're a responsible young man, Rory.
I actually got the playground unit for the early childhood development. We fundraised and we raised enough money to build a playground unit.
Well, thank you for your service.
At the place. I've coached soccer, and I do the kids programs for years. So I've been in the schools.
I bet you're a good soccer coach.
I tried my best. And yes, I did try my best.
What year soccer were you doing? How old were the kids?
I started out at U8s and I ended up in U12s.
Yeah, okay. So you weren't allowed to run around on the field with them. I hear that's the best part.
No, you're not allowed to run around on the field with them. Yeah. That's what happens in college. University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Oh, go Panthers. With that said, but let's have some fun here.
So what else are you going to do? What's in it for me?
What is it in for you?
Yeah.
Well,
you going to bring my electrical bill down? You going to bring my electricity bill down?
Well, we need to actually start getting about 1/3 of the population in solar. It's actually needed to do that, protect the grid.
Yeah.
Our future viability of the electric grid depends on about 1/3 of the population having their own solar collectors.
That's an interesting point. Where'd you get that from? That's an interesting statistic.
Well, that actually turned up because of the Texas.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, what happened in Texas with the,
with the electric company going down.
Going
down.
I lived in Texas for all those years. I'm full of Texas opinions, and I have to say the keyboardist of canned heat freezing to death in Texas in the winter because the electricity bill went down, grid went down, is the most Texas thing that has happened since the poet laureate of Texas accidentally shot himself with his own shotgun while cleaning it back in 2006. Texas is just so Texas. And it's a brutal place. Much sympathy to his band members.
It turned out that even though they blamed solar collectors and
no, they were lying.
They were lying through the teeth, and
Absolutely
it was
lying. Yeah.
the coal plants that actually brought it all down. But if
it was the ridiculous separate power grid, because they demanded on having their own power grid. They wanted a Texas power grid that didn't connect to the rest of America's dirty electricity, and that's really they killed the keyboardist of canned heat. He did nothing wrong. He paid his electric bill. He had every right to live through that winter. Anyway,
but with that said, if they did a little quick calculation, and if 1/3 of the population had their own solar collectors, they could have kept a lot of those neighborhoods going.
Absolutely.
By feeding back into the grid.
Yep, the sun shone through that whole thing, and it was not wind. Wind was working fine through the whole thing too.
Right.
It was natural. The natural gas pipelines froze, and the power grid was on the ridiculous Enron system.
The coal actually froze.
Yeah.
They couldn't put it in the furnaces.
Yeah, you know why that was? This is it all goes around. I want to talk about insulin for a second too. I'll use this to seg into insulin. There is a chemical that they spray on coal to stop it from freezing, but it causes a lot of CFCs and greenhouse gases. So they were forbidden by law from spraying that chemical on the coal, and that's why.
And they didn't cover it.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
they didn't pay for covering up the coal.
But it just goes to show that consider insulin. The insulin, the patent for insulin was sold for $1 so that it would never be made for a profit. Everybody knows that, right? Insulin used to cost $6 a vial 20, 30 years ago. Now it costs $248? What happened between now and then? Well, there was a concerted effort on the part of the American government to bring down the price of insulin the entire time. And really, remember, be honest, through your whole life, how many times have you heard somebody has a bill that will bring down the price of insulin? It's been constant, right? Since the 80s. Constantly.
Yeah. But it's all been to delay is to deny.
I don't think it's delayed. I think as I understand it, they did it wrong. What they did is they ended up structuring the bill wrong, and they created a monopoly of just a few companies for insulin. They accidentally pushed all the competition out of the market. And I mean, I'm not a capitalist. Previous jokes aside, I'm not a capitalist. I consider it ridiculous to be a capitalist or a socialist.
We don't have a capitalistic system. We have an entrepreneurial enterprise system.
That's true. You're not a capitalist if you don't have any capital.
And it's a fair market system because the United States Constitution has what's the word I want to go with? Regulations built into it.
Yeah, it sure does.
And
some
we're
are
not
wise
a free market. We are a fair market system.
And sometimes it works. Like the reason why you in Kentucky, if you're on Medicaid or if you're on KY Next in Kentucky, you get 26 chiropractor visits a year free. Most people don't know that, but if you're on KY Next, you get 26 free chiropractor visits a year. So the government can do good things.
Yes.
But also somehow everything that the government has done to bring down the price of insulin has conspired to raise the price of the insulin.
I think it's because special interests got into those laws and rewrote them to their benefit. And that's where you get, again, money interests over our public's interests.
The people who write the laws game the system, and I don't know how to make them stop. I really don't. Like campaign finance reform. Everybody wants campaign finance reform. It sounds great. Get money out of politics, right? Yet somehow everything that we have done in campaign finance reform has done nothing but conspire but to keep the poor out of politics.
Yeah.
No matter what we do.
A regular person like me,
Yeah.
I have to turn to you folks to get enough money to run.
Please do.
Okay? And
That's
if you
Rory
go to
Houlihan.
my Facebook page, I have just put in a connection to donate to me because I am a regular person.
Yep.
I don't-
Very regular person.
And I am not a rich person.
I will
And
vouch for this man. He is a representative of Clark
definitely
County.
need the funds. If
We are
my
normal
wife
people.
sees funds, she's a happy camper, and she is all for me running. If she doesn't see the funds, she knows that it's coming out of our pockets, and she is not a happy camper.
Yeah, I don't blame her on that one at all. We are normal people. We have no particular powers. We have no particular families. I mean, I'm sure you come from an
wanted
interesting
me
family,
to
but
say what I would like to do.
yes,
in
please
here.
continue. Yeah.
Well, there was a bill once upon a time put in that basically said if small donations under $150 would, under the matching system,
Yeah.
would be amplified 6 times. So your $25 donation would then be matched to be about $150.
Act Blue is doing that?
No,
Who's doing that?
that is one of the states did that.
Really?
Yes.
That's not half bad.
Okay, and I would like to see that happen in Kentucky, quite honestly, and for the Democratic Party.
You know,
I would also like to see ranked choice voting.
this is me giving Rory a high five on the radio. You can't see it, but yes, ranked choice voting is very dear to my heart. Absolutely, ranked choice voting all the way.
Because I've heard so many people complain that they don't have any choices,
Yep.
and the choices they have are bad choices. Well, ranked choice voting allows for multiple parties to exist.
Yep.
You basically, when you go into vote, you basically choose your first vote, your second person you're going to vote for, and your third person to vote for. If your first vote ends up being
Yeah.
no one gets gets 50 plus whatever votes, then the people who didn't get to win choose.
If you don't mind me stopping, you're overcomplicating it. I'll make it really simple
Please.
for people. Okay, here's how you explain. Everybody out here who doesn't know what ranked choice voting is. Let's pretend Zach is still on the phone here with us, right?
Okay.
And by the way, thank you, Zach, for letting us know. In the future, all interviews will be rotating around things that DoorDash drivers want to hear about, because that's got to be a huge part of our audience. Okay, so let's pretend Zach's still here, and you're here and I'm here, and we're hungry. After this, we gotta go eat, right? Okay, so what are our choices over there? We've got girls burritos. We've got McDonald's and whatever's under
Wendy's.
Wendy's. Let's say Wendy's is over there. It's not, but let's say Fazoli's is still there. I miss Fazoli's. Man, when I was a kid sitting right there, my very first job was right there outside this window. And when I was a kid, 15 years old, as a summer counselor guy, every single day there would be a fire at Fazoli's, and you could tell because the fire trucks would come roaring through with their lights on at lunchtime, and they turn into
Fazoli's.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's say this is the good old days, and there's a Fazoli's, there's a McDonald's, and there's a burrito place. What's your first choice? What's your second choice? And what's your third choice?
Okay, let's go Mickey D's, Fazoli's, and what's the other one?
Wendy's.
Wendy's.
Okay, so Mickey D's, Fazoli's, and Wendy's. I'm actually going to make this a tough case. So you want Mickey D's, Fazoli's, and Wendy's, right? Let's say that Zach, I'm sorry Zach's not here to stand up for himself, but let's say that Zach wants Fazoli's, Mickey D's, Wendy's. And then let's say I say Wendy's, Fazoli's, Mickey D's. If you think about that for a second, like, I'm super into Wendy's, but neither of you two want it at all, right? So that's it. Wendy's is out. So then we look at everybody's second choice. You really wanted McDonald's? He's okay with McDonald's. McDonald's was my third. McDonald's is out. Fazoli's was my second. You're okay with Fazoli's? He's okay with Fazoli's. I think if we go through, Fazoli's was only one person's first choice, right? But everybody else is like, Fazoli's is second. We can all live with Fazoli's. It really is that simple. Ranked choice voting is something that we all do every day when you're in a group context. It's exactly the same thing. It's complicated and people worry about it because it's complicated, but it really is that simple. Anyway, ranked choice voting all the way.
Again, countries that use ranked choice voting have multiple parties, and you get to better choose the candidate that more represents your own values.
And the candidates are inclined to compromise because everybody wants to be the second choice. The second choice, if you're the first or second choice, it's very powerful. But if you're somebody that a bunch of people hate, like Donald Trump, God bless him, child of the universe like all of us, Donald Trump would not have done well under a ranked choice voting system because I hate that guy is actually meaningful in ranked choice. Right. Whereas in America, it's just like you have two piles, whoever's pile is bigger wins.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how you get into those piles. Ranked choice actually introduces a level of comedy and respect. I'm a huge fan, and actually there's a lot of plans to try to institute in Kentucky, coming from Republicans, no less.
Well, the reason why it's coming from Republicans is that the primary system is basically forcing out traditional Republicans out of the race.
Yeah, they're getting primaried out by maniacs.
As I said, they have become an anti-system party.
I'm sorry Zach called you on that because it's true you go too far on it, but it's also true I see what you're doing and it's fair. It is fair. We are on a side, and it is a problem that I'm not more loyal. I agree.
If we are going to have a government that works, we've got to allow for more diversification. And we have to allow for more moderate forces to work.
Yeah, and our voting system is actually as much of part of the problem as anything else, and fixing the voting system will allow more moderate voices to work. Okay, we only have 10 minutes left, so I want to really put you on the spot. You want a hard question?
Go for it.
Okay, what's 6 divided by 8?
Well, you take 6 and you divide it in half, and you end up with 3, and then you got 8, and that's 4.
All right. Okay, you want a slightly easier question?
Okay.
Will you endorse Geoff Young?
Probably not.
Aw, come on, he's a nice guy. He likes you.
I know he likes me.
Well, fine. I was hoping, though. Geoff Young's a friend of mine, so I always like it.
He's helping him with his campaign.
I help a lot of people with a lot of campaigns, but Geoff is very dear to my heart because he's pathologically honest. He literally can't tell a lie, which makes him a very interesting figure on the political scene. But he also has a tendency to sue those who commit crimes, and nobody likes that. So. All right, well then, you got 10 minutes. If you're not going to endorse Geoff Young, what are you going to spend your time on?
Well, right now I'm planning on getting the campaign going, number one. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've got trying to get more radio gigs like this.
Oh, you're always welcome here. I mean, this has actually been a really fun show. I knew that if I put you in a chair, I could get you going.
Well, thank you on that, Bob.
I was waiting for you to really... I've seen you give some speeches, brother.
I'm really... Yes, I can get going.
Yeah, you sure can. I've looked around the room, man, and let me tell you...
I had the women's organization for Clark County, and the gal said, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Not a second longer. 5 minutes. You have to have a speech ready that's 5 minutes. And then when I got ready to speak, it's 2 minutes.
Yep. And well, you got 8.5 minutes here, but I don't know if you know this about this yourself, but your natural demographic is the little old ladies, man. I'll tell you, there's so many times I've seen you give a speech and looked around the room, and all the little ladies are going like, "He's right." It's wonderful.
Understand.
Yeah.
My relatives are long-lived, okay? I had a grandfather who lived to 104. I had a great-uncle that lived to 106. My great-grandfather lived to 92.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have long-lived relatives that I hung out with. So I have a personal history that dates back to about 1890 as far as what I personally know about, thanks to them being part of my life.
Yeah.
So-
Oh wow. Yeah. That's sort of nice, isn't it?
So
Yeah. That's really cool.
my great uncle
Yeah.
was a doctor during the last plague.
Oh wow. Really? Yeah.
The-
Spanish influenza.
He was
That was
he
actually
had,
4 plagues ago, but yes.
They actually pushed his becoming a doctor early. He was one of the youngest doctors to ever go through medical school at 22 years old. He was a dental surgeon, and as a dental surgeon, he was the youngest dental surgeon in, as far as I know, U.S. history.
Really?
Okay, and he moved into a little old town, and he
Was he up in
became-
Wisconsin?
Up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And he, my first recollection of my great uncle's house was, we drove up to his house, and the whole road was paved. Now, no one, okay,
Yeah.
you go into the front door, you turn to the left, you see a dental chair and an operating table. Lights,
Yeah.
lights, and 2 x-ray machines. You looked to where it would have been a dining room, and you have refrigerators and cabinets, steel cabinets with glass in them, and there's medical supplies there.
Yeah.
You walked down the hallway and you turned into the kid's room. You saw, of course, the drum set, but you also saw a second bed, which was a hospital bed. That was in the boys' room. You walked into that a little farther down, and you looked off to your right, and you saw the girls' room, and she had dolls and nice and things like that. And you looked at it, and there's another second bed, and it's a medical bed. Okay.
All right. Closing statements.
So understand, public is public.
Yes.
Okay. His home was the hospital.
Yes.
Now, eventually, they built a very nice hospital in town. And he had a very nice practice outside in town. Okay. And we drove to his place in town. Well, when you drove down to town, the road to town was a gravel road. Now, you have to imagine,
Yeah.
it is summertime, and you're traveling down a gravel road,
Yeah.
okay, and it's hot out, and so your windows are open, and here is all the gravel dust billowing out, and we're following his car.
Yep.
Because we didn't know where his office was. So, his road to his house was so important that they made it a paved road, but the road into town had not been paved.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right, Rory, you got 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Make your closing case for your candidacy and such and such.
I have worked for over 23 years in retail. Okay? I am a natural-born listener. I'm a natural-born problem solver. I've solved problems for the last 23 years or more. People's home improvement problems. Okay, so I know what to do, and I can do the job. What I need is your vote and your support, so I can be in the job, because Ryan Dotson is not nearly as qualified as I am. And we need the most qualified people in our government today. And I am a moderate, and I will stand for moderate actions and be moderate in all things. And I will try my best to get the best things done I can possibly do for you And I will listen to you, because that's what I've done for the last 23 years. It is part of me. And please, come to me and tell me what I can do for you, so that I can do that for you. You have a good and blessed day, folks. Bye.
Thanks, Rory. Well, that was Rory Houlihan running for the 73rd District congressional seat, assuming that's where the districts are after the Republican legislature gets through with them. And he's been joining us on Radio Free Eskippakithiki. And this is Geoff Šebesta, a natural-born problem creator. I am not a moderate, but I'm also not boring, so what do you want from life? Thank you very much for listening. Extra special thanks for Zach for calling in. You made the show really special. I really enjoyed talking to you. And we will be sure to have more to say to the DoorDash people of the world. And as we said, this is 88.1 WRFL. If you want to call us and talk about what just happened, you're too late. But you can find us on Twitter, and you can look up the archive on the show tomorrow. Again, opinions expressed on the show are...
Opinions of...
I get mine from a Ouija board. I don't know where yours come from. All right, so here we go. Rory, say bye.
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 Have a good day.